Wednesday night Satsang. This is Christmas, the Christmas Satsang. Because Satsang is a immersion in truth, immersion in reality. This is what we will talk about. And relative to Christmas, relative to this holiday, and Jesus, and the story of Jesus. How does truth relate to this? This holiday, Christmas. The story of Jesus and Jesus. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I hope you are enjoying a Merry Christmas. Christmas is a special day, right? It's a special day. Like Thanksgiving in the US is a special day. 4th of July is a special day. And Christmas is an especially special day. Most people have 2 days off on Christmas. It's a very special day in the US and in many places around the world, Christmas. But it's not always special for everyone. It might not even be always special for you. Special days are, well, special. They're not like other days. They're supposed to be better than other days. But if you make one day special out of the year, then what about the other days? What are your feelings about the other days? Well, they're not quite as special, are they? Because one day, Christmas is special, so you look forward to Christmas in a different way that you look forward to when you have to go back to work, or the day you're going to see the dentist for a root canal. Those days don't seem so special to you. And because you make some days special, other days don't seem special, right? The day you have to go back to work, Mondays, people kind of don't look forward to Mondays often if they don't like their job. Going to work is not a special day. Going to the dentist is not a special day. So in this way, we miss the specialness of every day. We miss the specialness of every day. Because we make Christmas special, then the day after Christmas is not so special. And 2 days after Christmas isn't so special. But New Year's Eve is special, so now we have another special day to look forward to. And we can wish everybody a Happy New Year, because this is a special day. Like Christmas, a special day. And in this way, we stop realizing how special every day is. How special every single moment of our life is. So these special days are generally conditioned days, aren't they? Where does Christmas come from? Where does this, it comes from our mind, it comes from conditioning. The tradition of giving presents on Christmas, which we loved as children. If we grew up in a Christian household, we had presents as children, and we really looked forward to that. We were conditioned at a very young age to believe that Christmas was some special event and special day. Where did this conditioning come from? The exchange of gifts on Christmas. It came from Macy's department store. It's a very old department store. And in order to promote shopping, this idea of giving gifts it was like, well, the wise men gave gifts to the baby Jesus, so this is what we're supposed to do too. We're supposed to give gifts to each other. And it can be beautiful. It can be a great expression of love, but it can also have some stress involved in it. And when we have our expectations of this special day, maybe you thought as a child that you were looking forward to so much to this special gift that you were going to get, and maybe you didn't get it. Or maybe you got something a little different. and you were disappointed. Or maybe the gift you wanted so much wasn't quite what you thought it was. And you either were disappointed, or after a while you didn't care about it anymore. This is what expectations do. And even as adults, we have this expectation of what Christmas is supposed to be. This beautiful experience of love and being with our family and friends in this warm, comforting thing. This is the conditioning that we've been brought up to believe, and advertising keeps promoting this for us. Promoting this to us, promoting this conditioning, reinforcing this conditioning. So if that doesn't happen, we can feel very disappointed. I think I heard not long ago that the day when the most suicides happen is Christmas Day. Most suicides happen on Christmas Day because of this great disappointment, this expectation of what it's supposed to be, and this disappointment that it's not. If you live far away from your family and you can't see them and you're supposed to be with them, your expectations are you're supposed to be with them, and you're not, then that expectation will lead to you feeling disappointed and sad. Because the reality is not meeting with the expectations, with your conditioned mind, your thoughts about what Christmas is supposed to be. And if you do meet with your family and you're expecting all this lovely warmth and comfort and being appreciated by people, maybe sometime during the day that doesn't happen. Maybe somebody doesn't appreciate you as much as you expected them to. And then you feel disappointed again. So our conditioning, as you know if you've listened to any of my things, our thoughts are what leads to our suffering. They're the entirety of our suffering comes from our conditioned thoughts, from these expectations that our thoughts bring to us, and these expectations are promoted by our society. They're fed into our brains by our society. And everybody agrees, yes, Christmas is a wonderful holiday. Yay! Christmas, I can't wait. But if you truly want to be happy, you're far better off living in reality, not in your conditioned mind, not with your conditioned expectations. And to our conditioning, it can feel like, Peter's a bummer. He's bringing my belief and my expectations down. But many people have experienced of Christmas that isn't what they expected it to be. That it was less than that, and they felt disappointed and sad, and some to the point of even to suicide. This is what our expectations and conditioning does to us. Have you ever felt that there was something superficial and shallow about the way Christmas is celebrated in the US? With all this interest in shopping, in materialism. There's sort of a superficial part to it. I had, even as a child I did. I thought this had something to do with Jesus. The birth of Jesus. Maybe it should have something to do with that more than Santa Claus. So let's talk about this, the story of Jesus, the birth of Jesus, the virgin birth, the wise men coming, the star showing the way, the expectation of a new Messiah in the world. There are many stories about Jesus, and some of them are true, and I'll get to that in a moment. But first, we want to look at where many of these stories come from. Just like buying Christmas presents and a lot of the stuff that goes along with our experience of Christmas, at least in the US, comes from Macy's department store and other department stores, and advertising, promoting shopping, promoting consumerism. Not a really such a holy thing. It was about profit. But yet we believe it, and it becomes part of our tradition, and we feel that this is something that's supposed to happen, that this is something that's deeply rooted in who we are, our belief in this. From the time we were children, this conditioning. We don't want to think that it just has to do with department stores increasing their sales. That's sort of a downer to realize that. So we don't think about that. And where does a lot of the stories about Christ come from? From the Christian church. And if we look back to the feudal days, the Christian church was fighting with the kings for power, weren't they? That's what their thing was. The Vatican, the Rome had its own army. And this wasn't an army of wonderful, loving people. This was an army of soldiers whose job was to kill for the sake of the church, to keep the power of the church. And you've heard of the Spanish Inquisition. This was not a very kindly way of being in the world. We would say it's not a very Christian way of being in the world, of what we like to think of as Christian. But Rome was very powerful, and the Pope was very powerful, equal to a king, and wanted more and more power and more wealth, just like the kings. It wasn't any different at all. And their way of getting power was through belief, through convincing people of belief. That some people, Christians, were good, and people that weren't Christians were not good. And if you weren't a Christian, you were like on the outs, you know, and nobody should associate with you. All through Europe, it was like this. It was challenging, to say the least. The church had a great deal of power and wanted more power and more land and more money. So a great deal of what we learn in Christianity comes from this, we could say, propaganda, political propaganda, in order to get more power. Right? So the true thing about Christ and the story of Christ, and that what Christ said, Christ was an enlightened being, a way shower, showing us what truth is, showing us the way to live a life of peace, love, happiness. A way shower, as all enlightened teachers are. Christ was an enlightened teacher. Jesus was an enlightened teacher. That's what Jesus was, an enlightened teacher. Jesus didn't come here to save us from our sins. Jesus came here to lead us into truth, into reality, as all enlightened beings do. That's their interest. Jesus was enlightened. And the true thing that Jesus is supposed to have said, which I'm sure he did say, if not said, felt, was, I and the Father are one. I and God are one. The Father is what he called God. I and God are one. I and God are one. And this is true. It's true for all of us. And as a way shower, as an enlightened being that was teaching others, that's what he wanted the people he was teaching to know, that you and God are one, that there is no separation between you and God. And so the church, in order to have power, how much power could they get if everybody experienced their own God realization? Their own self as God? How could the church say, we're the intermediary between you and God? To get to God, you have to come through us. You can't get to God without going through us. And so they had Christ saying, you know, you can only get to God through me. I'm the only way you can get through God. And because I'm dead, you have to go through the church. Right? What a beautiful way to get power if people believe this. And so many people in this world do. It works. The propaganda works. The brainwashing works. And so this belief is so rooted in people that for me even to say that, people would say, blasphemy, hang him, and be very upset that I'm pointing to truth. Because truth and belief are not the same thing. Belief is of the mind, of the conditioned mind of thought, and it is not true. None of our beliefs are true because they're thoughts, and no thought is true. So Jesus, as an enlightened being, understood this too. He grew up through his own conditioning and saw the conditioning of the people where he was, and was trying to bring them to truth, was trying to introduce them to truth. Not an easy thing to do. It's no easier today than it was in Jesus' time. People have very strong beliefs in their conditioning, and they don't want to hear truth, really. It can be upsetting to them. And that's the same problem Jesus had. He ended up being crucified for that, trying to bring people to truth. Many people were very angry. The Pharisees, the church leaders of his time in the Jewish faith were, well, there wasn't a Christian faith yet. They were very upset because he was rocking the boat. He was pointing to truth, and they were trying to have power based on propaganda, based on their indoctrination of people so that they would believe what they wanted them to believe, not what was true, but what they wanted them to believe for their own power. You can only come to God through me, through us. Give me your money, give me all your stuff, and that's how you get to God. And Jesus was trying to say, no, 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 it's not like that at all. I and the Father are one. You and the Father are one. There is nothing but the Father. There is nothing but God. This is reality. This is the good news. This is what Jesus was trying to share with people. And for trying to share it, he ended up getting crucified, which is not that uncommon, because people are very attached to their beliefs, and people who are using power over people through their beliefs are very attached to their power. They don't want people pointing the truth. It's revolutionary. It's dangerous. And even in your own lives, the experience of truth can feel revolutionary and disturbing and sort of, rocking your foundation of your beliefs, particularly your belief in I. So let's get back to I and the Father are one. I and the Father are one. You and the Father are one. You and God are one. What does this mean? If you and the Father are one, how does you fit in there? You see? When Jesus said, I and the Father are one, what he's really saying is there's no Jesus. There's just the Father. One is one. There's no room for two in one. There's just one. And if all Jesus said, like, I and myself are one, well, God isn't in that equation, is it? I and myself are one. Yeah. Where does God come in? But if you say, I and God are one, or I and the Father are one, then there can be no you. You is the imaginary part of it, the conditioning, the illusion. And all of you have this experience of being attached to this feeling of being a separate self, believing this. And that's challenging. It's challenging to experience your oneness, because your oneness does not include this separate self. And because we're attached to the separate self, we want it to. I and the Father are one. That means me and God. Me and God are one. Right? Can you see that that doesn't work? How can there be me and God and one? There's only one. There's only God. There's no me. This me is a dream. This me is an illusion. So this is the good news. and the truth that Jesus brought to the world. And the church twisted it to say, Jesus said, I and the Father are one, and the only way to God is through me. Added that in. The only way to God is through me. Right? So then they could prop up Jesus as being like Jesus, and we're the experts on Jesus. So if you want to go through God through Jesus, you have to come to us. You have to come to the church. You have to tithe. You have to give money to the church. And then they have all this power and wealth through that. It's still happening today. It was happening during the feudal times, and it's kept on going through today. There's many Christians that believe these things. This conditioning, just as we believe, that giving gifts and celebrating Santa Claus and stuff is a wonderful thing to do. And we don't want to think that it's just conditioning, that it's just brainwashing, that it's just manipulation, that we've accepted and believed. And so we try to make the best of it. We can have a wonderful Christmas, giving gifts and expressing our love. That's beautiful. Or not. Or we can be disappointed. But there's this little something there, isn't there? There's this little something, a little nagging thing that says, it doesn't feel quite complete. There's something missing in this celebration of Christmas, in this special day. There's something missing. Have you noticed this? A little niggling truth sneaking in to this nice dream of Christmas. So if we understand that Christ and God are one, and that we are God in one, I am God in one, you are God in one, and there is only God. There isn't me, you, Jesus. There's just God. There's a great relaxation into the peace of this truth. If you're willing to let go of you. And if you are willing to let go of you, then you know Jesus. Not as an imaginary story, or the virgin birth and the crucifixion and the rising from the dead and all the different stories of Christ. Not as stories, not as conditioning, not as brainwashing, not as propaganda, not as manipulation, but as a direct experience of Jesus. Because Jesus was an awakened being, and so are you. All beings, as Buddha said, have Buddha nature. All beings have the awakened nature. All beings. Not just humans. All beings. And because Jesus was enlightened, Jesus knew this, of course. He realized it. He didn't know it with his mind. He didn't need to. He had the direct realization of oneness with God. I heard a beautiful thing said, and I don't know if it's anywhere in the Bible, but God, it should be, that when Jesus was walking through the streets carrying the cross with a crown of thorns on his head, bleeding, being beaten and whipped by soldiers, just brutal, a woman along the side was weeping and crying because she loved Jesus and didn't want him being, treated so horribly. And Jesus turned to her and said, "Don't worry, it's only a dream." And that is what an enlightened person would say. But it's not something that the Christian church would allow, because it doesn't help them. If you knew it was only a dream, you would let go and realize your true nature, and you wouldn't need the church at all. You wouldn't have to give money to the church. You wouldn't have to support it. You wouldn't have to believe any of the propaganda, any of the manipulation, because you'd know truth. You'd know truth as your own being. as what you are, same as Jesus, same as Buddha, same as all awakened beings that you've ever heard of, and at this point still revere and look up to, not realizing that you are this, that you are not separate from this, that you and the Father are one. You and all beings are one. You are not separate from anything. And that is the experience of God. You know that God is not separate from anything, right? God is in all things. We learn this from the time we're young children. Which should be pointing to the realization that you're not separate from God, right? You're not separate from God. You don't need a church to be an intermediary between you and God, because you're not separate from God. This you that you think is separate from God is an illusion, a dream. It has never existed. This is all that Jesus and all way showers, all beings who experience truth, want us to know. This is the true good news. There is no better news than this. But when there's a mind filled with conditioning, it's hard to accept this, isn't it? Because it doesn't seem like it through the mind of conditioning. It doesn't seem like it when the mind is filled with this manipulation and propaganda. I'm different from others. I'm different from the world. I'm different from trees and rocks and the ocean and stars. I'm different from God. I'm separate from all of this. I'm a being alone in the universe, in the vast universe. And I need to defend myself, support myself, protect myself. I need to survive. That's the illusion. That's the dream. And that's the cause of all suffering. It's suffering because it's a dream, because it's not true. All of life is leading us to truth. All of life is constantly pointing truth to us and leading us to truth. All your suffering, all your successes, all your joys, all of it is leading you to truth. Every single bit of it, every single moment is special. Every single moment is sacred and holy. You are sacred and holy, the holiest of holy. The true nature of you, your true being. There is nothing more sacred and holy than this. You don't need a church to find this. It's in you. You are the church. You are the true church. Your very being is the true church. When Jesus says, "Follow me," he means follow me to your awakened nature. Not to become a Christian or any other religion, but to wake up to who you truly are. I think the greatest story that could be in the Bible would be when Jesus was beaten and carrying the cross through the streets and blood pouring down his face and being whipped and beaten by Roman soldiers, to turn to this woman and say, "Don't worry, it's just a dream." Because an awakened being realizes this. Hanging on the cross. I mean, the story of Jesus on the cross was like, "Oh God, why hast thou forsaken me? Put me in this terrible position, in the sun, no dying of thirst and pain and being jabbed by Roman soldiers with spears. Not a very pleasant way to die, to say the least. But he just had that for a moment. Just a moment. We all have that. We all have the ego comes back for a moment and we forget who we are. And so for a moment he forgot who he was. And then of course, what did he do when he forgot who he was? He suffered. He suffered terribly because he thought he was a person. He thought he was Jesus. And he forgot what he really was. And then just a moment later, he remembered. It happens to us. You know, we have fleeting moments of ego comes in after awakening. After we're really solid in our awakened state, there's fleeting moments of ego and attachment to ego that drift through, but we quickly get over it. We quickly realize, oh, that's the dream again. Ah, yeah, that's pretty sucky. That's the dream again. And we're back into our natural state, our true state of being. And so Jesus returned to his true state of being and said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because he could see in his true state of being, he knew everything about those soldiers. He knew everything that they were going through. He was not separate from them. So he knew they didn't know what they were doing. They weren't awake. How could they? Nobody who is not awake knows what they're doing. They're struggling in a dream. Everyone is. Everyone is struggling in a dream until they wake up from the dream. Just as when you go to sleep at night. You have your dream. If it's a struggling dream, then you're struggling in your dream and you believe it absolutely until you wake up. And this is what happens here. The difference is when you're dreaming, there's nobody coming into your dream and saying, hey, it's just a dream, don't worry about it, it's okay. There's nobody doing that. So you just believe your dream all the way through. But in this waking life, this waking dream, there are beings who do this. I'm one. Jesus, Buddha, Ramana Maharshi, there's many, many of us. All of us that have awakened. Very few who have awakened stay to themselves in this awakened state and don't bring benefit to the world. Because we're one. We're not separate. We're not separate from any suffering being. So how can we not? How can we not help? How can we not? The Buddha only stayed a few days under the tree and under his full enlightenment. And then he got up and looked for his followers. He needed to help. He saw. All beings have Buddha nature. All beings are Buddha nature. All beings are God. And yet they don't realize it. So this is the great good news of Buddha, of Jesus, of Ramana, of all awakened beings. Jesus was a wonderful awakened being. We would never have heard about him today if he weren't. But he's not what you think. He's not what you believe. Nor is Buddha, Ramana, me, or anyone else, or especially you. You are not what you think. You are absolutely nothing like what you think and believe. What you think and believe about who you are has no resemblance to your true nature at all. There's no parallels, there's no similarities. Your true nature is entirely beyond this conditioned thoughts. And you are not separate from Jesus, from Buddha, from God, from anything or anyone. You never have been, and you never could be. Although in the dream it seems like it. Just like as in your sleeping dream, it seems like whatever's happening in that is really happening. But it's not. It's just a dream. Don't worry, it's just a dream. Find out who you truly are. Find out your true nature. It's challenging because you're used to trying to find out with your mind, right? Find out, discover. That means I have to learn. I have to go on Google. I have to listen to Peter, and then I'll understand with my mind what my true nature is. But you can't. You are your true nature. It doesn't need your thoughts. It doesn't need your mind. It doesn't need your understanding. Let go of that. Let go of trying. Let go of trying to understand. And whatever you think you've understood, let go of that, because you haven't. You are your true nature. And it's not thoughts. Thoughts cannot help you. To your thoughts, that sounds so difficult. Oh my God, how hard is it to do that? But it isn't. It's relaxing, letting go, being, right? It's not hard to be. Your mind may say, oh, it's so hard to be. It's so hard to be present. But of course, you're always present. And you're always being. It's not hard. Nothing in the universe could be easier than simply being. Right now, in every moment, you are being. And if you let go of your thoughts, you open to your true nature beyond all thoughts, you will know Jesus, because you will experience the world through Jesus's eyes, you will hear through Jesus's ears, because you are not separate from this. Your true nature is enlightenment. Your true nature is fully awakened, always has been. No matter how lost in a dream and illusion you are, you've never been other than this. So you can celebrate Christmas as a special day, but try and understand that every day is special. Every day is sacred. Every day is holy. Every moment of every day is sacred and holy. You are sacred and holy. No matter what you think, no matter what seems to be happening in this dream of your life, it's not what you think. The dream is a dream. It's not reality. The kingdom of God dwells within. Yeah, the kingdom of God dwells within. Exactly. But there isn't also a within and without. That's the thing. We're using words. We've always been using words to teach, always been using words to try and help people understand what's beyond words. And that's challenging for people to understand, and challenging for us to use words to help people understand. The kingdom of God is within, meaning it's far closer than looking out in churches and mosques and places to find it. It's far closer than that. It's here. But there is no within or without, because those are illusions. Those are more concepts, within and without, inside and outside. There really is no inside or outside. There is only one. And in this experience of only one, all these illusions and dualities disappear as a dream. You know, just as you wake up in the morning, the dream slowly fades away. You realize you're in bed, and the whole dream scenario of everything that happened, you, the character of you, and all the people in the dream fade away. And you realize, oh, none of that was real. It's just a dream. Same thing happens when you wake up. You, your life, your history, all that just dissolves away. It's not what you think. It was never what you thought. And what's left is reality. What's left is truth, as things are, without this belief in a separate self. And you feel the oneness, which you know love. I mean, I've felt that love is a good bridge to this, because your experience of love is experience of a little less separation. When you love another person, you feel a little less separate to that person than you do to other people. It's giving you a little glimmer into truth. The feeling of love is giving you a little glimmer into truth. The truth is there is no separation at all. So you can imagine the amount of love that you experience when that's your reality. The vast, all-pervasive, unconditional love of being, of your true nature. But when you have love for another person, you get a small glimpse of that. And that's good. That's a feeling, right? Love is a feeling. You really don't understand love with your mind. You may think you do, but if you really look, you don't. You cannot describe love, really. Even Shakespeare, wonderful and beautiful as he was at writing and expressing love in all kinds of things, couldn't really do it. Nobody can. You directly experience love, but you don't need to understand it, do you? To feel it, you don't need to understand it. You don't need to have thoughts about it. You experience far more the experience of love when you don't have any thoughts about it. The same with happiness, joy, peace. Same with anything that's true. Yeah. Jesus was a wonderful way shower, you know, showing us the way, bringing us to truth. And the church has manipulated and finangled and done all kinds of manipulations with the story of Jesus in order to get power, in order to oppress people and have them, you know, be in servitude to the church. It was a very oppressive thing to do, you know. As Macy's thing it wasn't to bring love to families. It was to get money, to convince them to buy. And even to convince them to buy more than they could afford, to put them into hock and have more suffering from it, you know, for the term of profits. Much of our conditioning comes through this kind of thing, through advertising, through manipulation. Not that people are trying to help us. They don't have our best interest at heart. They have their best interest at heart. And they manipulated society. And our conditioning comes from society. In the West, we're conditioned to be materialist, to believe that having the right thing will make us happy, getting the right thing will make us happy, obtaining the right thing will make us happy. And even with Enlightenment teaching, we think that too, you know. If only I could get enlightenment, like buy enlightenment, as if it's this thing. Enlightenment is a thing, is something I'm going to get, some new knowledge. The next book is going to make me enlightened. It's not a product. It's not a product. It's not something you can understand with your mind. It's not something you can hold or buy. It's your true nature, and you already have it. That's why we say sometimes that teaching about enlightenment is selling water by the river, right? Standing in the river, everybody's standing in the river, and we're trying to sell them water. There's water everywhere. You are water. This is your true nature. You've never been separate from this. You've never been unenlightened. You're just dreaming that you are. And this is all Jesus and all awakened masters have ever wanted you to know. I and the Father are one. You and the Father are one. The only way to God is through you. Thank you, my friends. Have a Merry Christmas, and more importantly, have a merry every single moment of every single day. Don't forget this. Every moment of every single day is special and sacred. You are special and sacred, absolutely separate, absolutely not separate from anything, and absolutely sacred. Thank you, my friends. Many blessings to you.